Hello and welcome dear students. Today we will take up session 3 of the lesson Bhakti-Sufi traditions from the Themes in Indian History Part 2 of class 12th. In the previous two sessions we have discussed the religious movements of South India, Alvars, Nayanars and Veer Shaivism. We have also discussed the composition of saint poets, their attitude toward caste system, etc. Now, in this session, we will learn about the Islamic religion in the Indian subcontinent and Sufism. Dear students, the learning objectives of today's session are to help you learn about the faiths of rulers and subjects, to help you learn about the popular practice of Islam, to help you understand the regional impact on Islamic culture, to help you learn about the growth of Sufism, Khanqah and Silsilas, to help you know about Chishti Silsila and its devotionalism, to help you learn about the relationship between Sufis and the state. Dear students, first of all, we will study the faiths of rulers and subjects. Muhammad Qasim of Arabia was the first Muslim who invaded India. In 711, he conquered Sindh, which became parts of the Caliph's domain. The Turks and Afghans established the Delhi Sultanate in the 13th century. This was followed by the formation of sultanates in the Deccan and other parts of the subcontinent. Islam was an acknowledged religion of rulers in several areas. This continued with the establishment of the Mughal Empire in the 16th century as well as in many of the regional states that emerged in the 18th century. Dear students, now we will study about the policies of Muslim rulers who administered the empire. Students, Muslim rulers were to be guided by the ulema, who were expected to ensure that they ruled according to the Sharia. Clearly, the situation was complicated in the subcontinent, where there were populations that did not subscribe to Islam. Sharia is the law governing the Muslim community. It is mainly based on the Quran, which is holy scripture of Islam, and Hadith means words and deeds of Prophet. It is in this context that the category of the zimmi, meaning protected, derived from the Arabic word jimma, means protection, developed for people who followed revealed scriptures such as the Jews and Christians and lived under Muslim rulership. They paid a tax called jizya and gained the right to be protected by Muslims. In India, this status was extended to Hindus as well. Muslim rulers such as the Mughals came to regard themselves as emperors of not just Muslims but of all people. In effect, rulers often adopted a fairly flexible policy towards their subjects. For instance, several rulers gave land endowments and granted tax exemptions to Hindu, Jaina, Zoroastrian, Christian and Jewish religious institutions and also expressed respect and devotion towards non-Muslim religious leaders. Dear students, now we will know about the popular practice of Islam. The rules of Sharia were expected to be followed by all the sections of society, such as peasants, artisans, warriors, merchants, etc. All those who adopted Islam, they had to practice the 5 pillars of the faith. First, Shahada. There is one God, Allah, and Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. Second, Namaz or Salat, offering prayers 5 times a day. Third, Zakat, giving alms. Fourth, Swam, fasting during the month of Ramzan. Fifth, Hajj, performing the pilgrimage to Mecca. Regional impact on Islamic culture. Dear students, The universal features, that is, 5 pillars of Islam, were often overlaid with diversities in practice derived from sectarian affiliations and the influence of local customary practices of converts from different social milieus. Examples of regional impact were the Khojas, a branch of the Ismailis, developed new modes of communication and adopted some Sanskrit words in their language. These include the Jinan, derived from the Sanskrit jana, meaning knowledge. Second, devotional poems in Punjabi, Multani, Sindhi, Kutchi, Hindi and Gujarati sung in special ragas during daily prayer meetings. Third, Arab Muslim traders who settled along the Malabar coast, Kerala, adopted the local language Malayalam. Fourth, they also adopted local customs such as matrilineal and matrilocal residence. Fifth, mosques were also constructed in Indian style, such as roofs and building materials were locally influenced, while the universal features such as their orientation towards Mecca, evident in the placement of the mihrab, prayer niche and the minbar pulpit. The growth of Sufism. Dear students, in the early centuries of Islam, a group of religious-minded people called Sufis turned to asceticism and mysticism in protest against the growing materialism of the caliphate as a religious and political institution. They were critical of the dogmatic definitions and scholastic method of interpreting the Quran and Sunnah, traditions of the Prophet, adopted by theologians. Instead, they laid emphasis on seeking salvation through intense devotion and love for God by following His commands and by following the example of the Prophet Muhammad, whom they regarded as a perfect human being. The Sufis thus sought an interpretation of the Quran on the basis of their personal experience. Dear students, now you will know about Khanqahs and Silsilas. Khanqah was the religious center the Sufis began to organize communities around the hospice or Khanqah, controlled by a teaching master known as Sheikh, Pir or Murshid. He enrolled disciples or murids and appointed a successor or khalifa. He established rules for spiritual conduct and interaction between inmates as well as between lay persons and the master. Sufi silsilas began to crystallize in different parts of the Islamic world around the 12th century. The word silsila literally means a chain, signifying a continuous link between master and disciple, stretching as an unbroken spiritual genealogy to the Prophet Muhammad. It was through this channel that spiritual power and blessings were transmitted to devotees. Special rituals of initiation were developed in which initiates took an oath of allegiance, wore a patched garment and shaved their hair. When the sheikh died, his tomb shrine or dargah, a Persian term meaning court, became the center of devotion for his followers. This encouraged the practice of pilgrimage or ziyarat to his grave, particularly on his death anniversary or urs. Urs meaning marriage, signifying the union of his soul with God. People sought their blessings to attain material and spiritual benefits. Thus, evolved the cult of the Sheikh revered as Wali, means friend of God, outside the Khanqah. Dear students, Sufis can be classified into two parts, Be-Sharia and Ba-Sharia. Besharias followed following ways. First, many scorned the Khanka and took to mendicancy and observed celibacy. Second, they ignored rituals and observed extreme forms of asceticism. Third, they were known by different names: Kalandars, Madaris, Malangs, Hadris, etc. Because of their deliberate defiance of the Sharia, they were often referred to as Be-Sharia. The Ba-Sharia Sufis followed following ways. They did not follow celibacy. They believed in the rituals. Dear students, now you will know about the Chishti Silsila in the Indian subcontinent. Of the groups of Sufis who migrated to India in the late 12th century, the Chishtis were the most influential. This was because they adapted successfully to the local environment and adopted several features of Indian devotional traditions. Life in the Chishti Khanka. The different activities took place in the Khanka. It was the center of social life. It comprised several small rooms and a big hall where the inmates and visitors lived and prayed. The inmates included family members of the Sheikh, his attendants and disciples. The Sheikh lived in a small room on the roof of the hall where he met visitors in the morning and evening. There was an open kitchen or langar. From morning till late night, people from all walks of life, soldiers, slaves, singers, merchants, poets, travelers, rich and poor, Hindu yogis and kalandars came seeking discipleship, amulets for healing and the intercession of the Sheikh in various matters. Other visitors included poets such as Amir Hassan Sizzi and Amir Khusro and the court historian Ziauddin Burni, all of whom wrote about the Sheikh. Dear students, now you will learn about the practices that were adopted by Chishti in their Khanka. Practices that were adopted including bowing before the Sheikh, offering water to visitors, shaving the heads of initiates and yogic exercises represented attempts to assimilate local traditions. Sheikh Nizamuddin appointed several spiritual successors and deputed them to set up hospices in various parts of the subcontinent. As a result, the teachings, practices and organization of the Chishti as well as the fame of the Sheikh spread rapidly. This in turn drew pilgrims to his shrine and also to the shrines of his spiritual ancestors. Dear students, now you will understand the Chishti devotionalism, ziyarat and qawwali. The Sufi saints expressed their devotion through the following ways. Pilgrimage called ziyarat to the tombs of Sufi saints is prevalent all over the Muslim world. This practice is an occasion for seeking the Sufis' spiritual grace or barakat. For more than 7 centuries, people from different walks of life expressed their devotion at the dargah of the 5 great Chishti saints. The use of music and dance, including mystical chants performed by specially trained musicians or qawwals to evoke divine ecstasy, is also part of ziyarat. The Sufis remember God either by reciting the zikr, the divine names, or evoking his presence through sama or performance of mystical music known as qawwali. Dear students, you may have heard or visited the dargah of Khwaja Moinuddin at Ajmer. Now, you will know about the popularity of this dargah. The most popular dargah is that of Khwaja Moinuddin, popularly known as Gharib Nawaz, comforter of the poor. The dargah became so popular because of the following reasons: the austerity and piety of the Sheikh, greatness of his spiritual successors, and the patronage of royal visitors. Location of Ajmer was another factor for its popularity, as it was located on the trade route connecting Delhi and Gujarat. It attracted a number of travelers. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was the first sultan to visit the dargah. Akbar, the Mughal emperor, visited dargah at Ajmer 14 times in his life, and these visits were aimed at seeking blessings for new conquests, fulfilling of his vows, and to get sons. Many of his wishes were soon fulfilled, and thus, as an offering, he gave generous gifts on each visit. He offered a huge cauldron to facilitate cooking for pilgrims. He even got a mosque constructed within the dargah. Language and communication. Dear students, Chishtis adopted local languages to communicate their messages. First, in Delhi, those associated with the Chishti Silsila conversed in Hindavi, the language of the people. Other Sufis such as Baba Farid composed verses in the local language which were incorporated in the Guru Granth Sahib. Third, some composed long poems or masnavis to express ideas of divine love using human love as an allegory. Fourth, other compositions were in the form of Lurinama or lullabies and Shadinama or wedding songs. It is through this medium that Islam gradually gained a place in the villages of the Deccan. Dear students, now we will know about the relationship between Sufis and the state. Sufis and the state. Sufis and rulers both were dependent on each other for their growth. First, the Sufis accepted unsolicited grants and donations from the political elites. Second, the sultans in turn set up charitable trust or awqaf as endowments for hospices and granted tax-free land inam. Third, the Chishtis accepted donations in cash and kind. Fourth, kings did not simply need to demonstrate their association with Sufis, they also required legitimation from them. Fifth, it was believed that the awliya could intercede with God in order to improve the material and spiritual conditions of ordinary human beings. There were instances of conflict between the sultans and Sufis. Recapitulation. Dear students, now we will recapitulate the whole session which we have studied. Fates of rulers and subjects, the coming of Turks and the Islamic tradition, the popular practice of Islam, regional impact on Islamic culture, the growth of Sufism, Khanqa and Silsilas, the Chishtis in the subcontinent, the practices that were adopted by the Chishtis in their Khanqa, Chishti devotionalism, ziyarat and qawwali, Sufis and the state. Dear learners, here is some creative home assignment for you. Give the meaning of Jimma. Who were Jimmis? Khanqa was a center of social life. Give two arguments in the favor of this statement. Explain the importance of Chishti Silsila in the context of Sufism in the Indian subcontinent. Explain the features of Islamic religion which contributed to its spread through the subcontinent. Identify the relationship between the Sufis and the state from the 8th to the 18th century. That's all for today's session. I hope you enjoyed a lot. Remaining part of this theme will be discussed in the next session. Thank you so much.